Hey everyone, just a friendly heads up. This is part 2 of our discussion. So after the intro, we're going to dive right into it. If you missed part 1, feel free to go back and check that out.
Hi everyone. Welcome to the Beyond Deadlines podcast, where we tackle challenges that planning and schedule leaders come across on a day-to-day basis. My name's Greg Lawton, and I'm the CEO of an AI schedule management company called Nose and Links.
And I'm Micah Pipo, a planning and scheduling manager for Intel.
Hi, and I'm Ian Heptinstall. I'm Associate Professor in Project Management at the University of Birmingham in the UK. But I'm a late career academic, so most of my career has been spent practitioner on projects.
Wonderful. Ian, a pleasure to have you here. For everyone listening, each podcast is designed to give you strategies and tactics that you can implement right away. Today, Ian is in the hot seat. You are the longtime friend and mentor of the CEO of a major general contractor, and she's asked you to come in to assess the quality of the project management function. What do you do?
This may be a little bit on a tangent, but when I look at the market of general contractors and the supply chain for construction, it seems very commodity-like to me. Now, you can go up in the chain and get a Bechtel or a Floor. They can do bigger things, but it's the same commodity. And so do you see an avenue for a general contractor to be, I'll call more luxury based? So adding the skill sets that you're talking about and speaking of, and luxury doesn't sell to everyone. It's not a commodity. There's only certain people who buy Gucci bags for a reason, and Gucci advertises to them. So do you see that as a potential path forward for any GCs? And if so, why aren't more taking that path?
I do see it as a path forward, Micah, but I'm not sure I see it as luxury, which brings the connotation of a premium pricing, which I normally make a comment on, because I've heard this a lot in people who work in the construction and infrastructure sector when I talk about collaborative contracting and project alliancing. It's great when we have to, as though it's a premium product. My view is, if you want a cheap as chips and a good enough quality project, why shouldn't you be able to achieve that with a team that collaborates and doesn't have all this wasteful activity of unnecessary contractual policing? I don't see any logic why a team with great collaboration can't deliver significantly cheaper and faster than any other mechanism, other than maybe we're not doing it right. So, putting aside the luxury thing, yes, I believe that there's a significant opportunity there, but main contractors would need to develop some confidence, some competence, and then the confidence themselves that, hey, this stuff will work. Now we can start offering it to clients, not only those clients who are asking us to work more collaboratively, and there are a number of those, but they're still few and far between. But I also think that a main contractor could say, hey, we can operate collaboratively downstream. And if our ultimate client still wants a fixed price lump sum, because we know how to collaborate with our supply chain, and in the right sort of contracts, meaning those that the clients leave us reasonably well alone to do our own thing, then I do not see why a collaborative supply chain shouldn't be inherently lower cost, inherently less wasteful, therefore the ability to make the same, if not more, profit margin for the participants, whilst giving the client a lower project cost and a faster completion, and therefore higher return on investment.
See, that sounds luxury to me. That's why I used the word luxury, because that sounds luxury to me. And I don't mean it
because it doesn't exist.
A little bit, but
today.
I wasn't saying it in terms of it costs, that you just don't pay more, but you get a ton of value out of it, and you're willing to pay for that value. I guess that'd be my definition of luxury. Greg, you were going to say something.
So what I'm going to do now is actually take Micah, our philosophy of grilling, and actually bring it up to the three of us. And I'm going to say, Ian, let's assume you're correct on everything, okay? what are the things that the GCs could offer or the clients could offer that would legitimately change the game? And I'll start, for example. You mentioned one before, a guarantee. So a guarantee that if something is not, well, you could have a negative guarantee. If we are not delivered by that date, we will cover everything, no questions asked, etc. The kind of guarantee you get in a high-end suit shop as opposed to a contractor. Let's throw out of the window how practical these are for now, because that's a downstream figuring thing out. But let's throw out what would legitimately change the game in terms of what people are offering. Ideas.
And you've just stolen one of them, because I think if you're driving this change from a main contractor point of view, that's exactly a way, hopefully, to get people's attention, is to offer the project owners that sort of guarantee to show you're willing to put your money where your mouth is. That would be seen with suspicion because of the recent past history. So that's one of the things that could be done. But if I'm the owner or the chief exec of that main contractor, I should say, well, if you're able to maintain your current pricing, I believe you could make that offer and probably at least double, if not triple, the profitability of the organisation you're working for. I think the opportunity is that significant, just by getting better at delivering what you need to deliver.
Another thing that's come to mind is to treat. So for me, I was always taught that in general contractors are fundamentally just three things. Number one is a supply chain management company. Number two is a bidding company. And number three is an insurance company, which they execute via project management and risk management. On the first one, what you could actually do is give full transparency of the supply chain and allow potential clients to go and ask questions of pricing to your supply chain and actually just accept. We just coordinate 80% of these people. If you would like to go to them directly and contract them or tell another person I'd like to go to them, fine, go for it. You're just not going to do it as well as us. And by the way, if you screw us over, we won't let you access the supply chain again. So that could be one, which is feel free to contact anyone in our supply chain and ask them how much stuff costs, what capacity they have, what it's like working for us, etc.
Yeah. And I would agree with that, because what I will be offering as a main contractor, general contractor, to the owners is I want to make money by managing and synchronizing this contract. I think you termed it supply chain management. But at the level of the contract, of the project, making the project work flow more smoothly, not treating these contractors and subcontractors at arm's length. And that's where a significant opportunity arises, because projects work well and go wrong based on the interfaces between the different people, organizations and specializations. And I think that interfacing skill is one that's atrophied. And the GCs, the M.Cs are in the prime position to build that competence up again. I know a few are. If I look at those involved in the lean construction movement, they're talking about things like that. I know that large, hands-on, capable owners, like the Intels of this world, have an understanding across the whole of that supply chain and the value of making all these bits work together and not hold anything up. But sadly, it's still too rare.
I've got a third idea, by the way, but I think it's time. Micah, Ian, what are your ideas?
I think for me is diving back into I'm going to stick on that luxury thing. I would love to see exclusivity. You only bid certain projects. You only work for certain owners. Once you build up this brand and idea that, the MGI, the Micah, Greg, Ian, GC delivers projects on time, they guarantee that delivery. then you only work for certain people who set up the pens that are able for you to go knock down. You don't work for everybody. You don't go get every job. You don't have to do that. You know what
Reverse
makes you
bidding.
successful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're going to get probably, out of 100 inbounds, you're going to take 10 projects. And that's what I would like to see, because you are so confident and successful in what you do. You know what makes you successful, that then people will be knocking at your door to come get it. But it would force them to change to you, rather than when we bring GCs in on the owner's side, we're like, you will do what we say. And it works, like how it works.
Yeah. And there's a saying we used to use when I did lots of procurement work, that the best suppliers, you need them more than they need you. The best suppliers in their market have already got plenty of customers. The ones who are willing to put up with your tortuous, bureaucratic, extended, uncertain bidding process are those who haven't got customers queuing up at the door and can't and aren't turning work away. So I think that's a good reminder on that point, Micah. So back to your question, Greg. I've got a magic wand, and I will suddenly change things. I don't know how to change it. My perfect world would have a totally different raft of trusted advisors advising large infrastructure owners than we have today.
Who is an advisor? What do you mean?
The large specialist project consultancy companies who advise clients on how to set them up. They're the people who use the term delivery model, and they mean purchasing model. Because many of them actually have a significant vested interest in the status quo. I'm not going to name many names, but there's large consulting organizations in that space who, they sell tens, if not hundreds of thousands of bodies to work on projects to administer the tortuous commercial and administration and bureaucratic relationships set up by many of the standard forms and standard approaches. So my magic wand would give clients either somehow a lot of confidence to make their own decisions, the ability to critically analyse, is what I'm being advised actually the best thing to do? So that you realise that some of the advice has been in more of the interest of the advisors. Now, I've worked in consulting, and this is a common feature of the consulting industry. It's why large consultancies offer pro bono work to governments. It's a long-term strategy to create more work, isn't it?
There is, and there's actually, just thinking out loud, there's some models that they could take from in here. So I have one foot in project management and one foot in venture capital. And in venture capital, one of the techniques that I've seen used is they will get a super senior advisor from the industry and basically say, we will give you the opportunity to buy into this company at a below market price, but you have to do due diligence. Now, they're still putting their own money into a company. So they're going to do their due diligence properly, but it's below market price, so it's a big advantage. Now, think of it yourself. If someone's asking you for 50,000 to put in, you're going to, I don't know, I'm going to have a real think about, is this, etc. So it could be something like that. But I'll finish up on one final idea, because it'll drive me insane if I don't get it out and then have a think about it later. What if clients didn't tie payments or profit to milestones? They tied it to process effectiveness. So, for example, they became a bit of a heavier client, and the GC was actually there. For example, they were compensated their profit based on predictability. So, if you can more perfectly predict what's going to happen, and obviously you have the control mechanisms, you get paid higher profit, because that drives certainty, and certainty decreases risk, and risk is the real driving factor of ROI calculations in the business cases.
There's an important dilemma that I see underpinning that, Greg, that I think highlights one of the issues in managing projects, is that there's often an assumption that if the incremental detail steps on the way to a project hit micro milestones and follow a baseline exactly, that increases the chance that the overall project hits the targets.
This is controversial secrets of the industry here.
I think that's
true.
Not only misleading, but actually drives the wrong behaviours. Because if you want more reliable project level achievement, final completion date, factory startup date, 100% production rate, total investment cost, then my view, and quite a bit of experience, says you need to let go of trying to track a very detailed baseline, because most of the variation is unknowable. And in statistics, they talk about separating the signal from the noise. And most of what we see in KPIs is noise, and we think it's signal. So we act and we risk making things worse. So as we said in the preparation, I'm quite a fan of the scheduling and execution method called critical chain. That's the only method I'm aware of that builds that philosophy in. Don't worry about whether the detailed work follows exactly some baseline. And doing that, now this isn't just, I don't want to know, I'm going to ignore my project until the end date and see if it's on time. That's not saying that, because there are different control mechanisms and things to look at. But you're looking more of how the work flows and what the obstacles to efficient and effective flow of work are. And when there is an obstacle, you actively overcome it, both on the spot and systemically. And forcing people to follow a tight baseline gets rid of a lot of those practices and behaviours. So that's the irony. Allowing work to take as long as it takes. But coming back to your earlier point, focus on the process of doing work, not the results it achieves. And you can actually have more reliable project level outcomes that are not just more reliable, but are more reliable in less time. So the projects are on time, but faster, and they're on budget, but for lower cost. And it's very counterintuitive. It doesn't feel right at all.
Greg, when you mentioned process, what I first thought of was a project where it was supposed to be shell weather tight. So you have the shell of the building, and then hit the milestone. Here's your money. And I remember doing the site walk on the day shell was weather tight, and they had tarps taped over the door. They had like every little thing you could do to just meet the definition they did, which then leads you to question, was that baseline milestone and those steps to take really worth that much value? Because they're not really at show weather tight. To me, then, paying for the process of setting up critical chain and having it work effectively would be a much better payment structure. That's what I thought of when you said process. I would gladly give someone, here's $100,000 of profit. You set up critical chain effectively. I watched your process. It's working. The show weather tight will come and go, but you're using the most effective planning strategy we know at this time. And I'm happy to pay for that process.
And to flip it around as well, I'm fortunate enough that my co-founder is a professor in complex systems and has researched all of this. And what you say, Ian, is, and actually I run a large data science team. And what you said, we have seen in trillions of dollars of project data, which is the more you control, the more complex a system is, the more unpredictable its behavior, because the more states that system can occupy. So the more ways it can go wrong. And the way to control those systems is not to try and control those systems. The only way you can control effectively complex systems is through process and incentive mechanisms. So, for example, what if we paid every labourer each day 10% of their wage as a bonus if they finish their work safely and on time? Just something as simple as that. I don't have the evidence for this, but I would hypothesize that would drive a significant increase in predictability. But then if you topped onto it and saying, we'll pay you 20% if you actually spot a better way of doing something, it would just drive different behaviors at a lower level, which would then bring it up to the critical chain, etc.
Those incentives are extremely powerful. But if I was collaboratively contracting, the main deliverables that impacted the profitability of the organisations would be important completion. I'd be nervous about doing interim milestones. They might help with some sort of interim, and as Micah said, if the owner had a view that it wants to reward efforts made as well as ultimate outcomes, it could do that as it went along. One of my first that did this linked a significant proportion of our variable payment to safety. But there was an input element to the calculation. So the quality of the safety plan we had on site, the consistency with which it was delivered, were we doing what we said we would, had a positive impact on our safety index and therefore our end of project payment. Nasty accidents and serious hurt to people pulled it in the opposite direction. But we did design the incentives to balance the two, because we didn't want the supply members just crossing the fingers and hoping for a bit of luck in order to make the money. So tying that reward. When it comes to that complexity, one of the pictures that I use is that of a rapidly flowing stream. Now, if you look at the stream, you can see shapes and you can see consistency and you can see predictability, and you could manage the flow of water in the stream. If you zoom in to the level of molecules of water, it's random. There's no pattern whatsoever. If you look at a particular patch of a stream, there's water going in all directions. So there's no predictability. And that's the problem. If you incentivize craftspeople doing work, then you risk getting gameplay and say, well, I don't know what rubbish is going to happen today, but since I'm being paid relative to my commitment, I'll make sure the commitment I make is one I know I can achieve. And you get the effect of Sergei Bubka, something else you youngsters will have to Google and look up. But he broke the world record for pole vaulting, I think about 35 times. And what drove that was athletics going professional. And each of the major athletics games had a bonus if an athlete broke a world record at their games. So he could probably have jumped this high, but he didn't. He increased 2 or 3 centimetres at a time and had a big payout of bonuses just because he wanted to hit that commitment. His commitment was to break a world record at each athletics event.
I've never heard that story. That's a great story.
But there's me going off into tangent.
Now, Ian's saying that. I just want to tell our listeners, Ian's saying that as a negative. But I would say that can be used as a positive in your workplace. You think about how you could potentially do that. Don't always think that is a negative. I get that's a negative for incentivizing people, but sometimes just getting that gold medal is all you need to do.
If you're the person doing it, if I was in Butker's position, that's exactly what I'd have done as well.
Micah's unethical life pro tips. There you go.
Follow the rules. Somebody sets the rules.
There you go.
Follow them to your advantage.
Right, then with that, we've been talking for quite a while, and I think this has been a fantastic conversation. Ian, before we finish, have you got any final thoughts that you'd like to impart on the listeners?
Only that have faith. Major projects can be managed significantly better, but with much less stress and much more enjoyment. But I think we need to sort out how we contract and reward people across the supply chain, as well as how we schedule and control the flow of work. Get those sorted, and things can be significantly better for all of us.
Wonderful. And Micah, seeing as you were giving unethical advice a second ago, would you like to give some more advice that's potentially less unethical?
I probably should at this point just keep my mouth shut. So that's what I'm going to do. Be ethical, people. Be ethical. Always follow the rules, as Ian said.
Wonderful. Well, with that, we'll close out this episode. But if you've enjoyed it, please give it a like and please share it with some people in your organization or your friends who would like to listen. Micah and I track subscribers on every couple of weeks, and it just gives us that nice little endorphin rush to see that people actually like what we're making, because we give up our Sundays and our Mondays to do this. So if you can do that, you help us out. With that, thank you very much.